I did a looks-maxing tier list, but what about features themselves? What's important and what's not that noticeable? Let's start with an easy one, the eyes. The eyes are the window to the soul, yada yada yada. We don't need to talk too much about them, let's put them straight to S tier and let's move on. And by the way, I mean the whole eye area. It would take hours to rate each feature of the eyes individually, so I'm talking about the whole package, meaning canthal tilt, shape, eyelashes, eyelid exposure, etc. I kept one as its own category though, and that's eyebrows, since they're not exactly part of the eye, even though they are part of the overall eye area. And what I just said reveals their importance. They're not as important as the eyes themselves, or the jawline, but they can highlight the most important area of the face, so I'm going to put them in B. They are definitely a nice to have, including the eyebrow ridge, but they're not a make or break. You can get away with thinner or average eyebrows if your other features are on point. What you can't get away with is the following. The jawline. 88% of women want a man with a strong jawline, and 12% are probably lying. When we're talking about a very attractive man, a strong jaw always comes to mind, and that goes for every niche or category. Whether we talk about pretty boys or chads or hypermasculine men, a chiseled jaw is always there. So putting them in S would definitely be appropriate, but on the other hand the eyes are slightly more important. I'd rather have the perfect eyes and an average jawline than vice versa. And there are also workarounds when it comes to the jaw, such as growing a beard or fillers, but when it comes to the eyes, you can't do much. So, I'll put the jaw in A tier. Once again, I mean the whole area including the chin and the skin under the jawline. Continuing with something less important, which is the forehead, and I'll repeat what I said multiple times on my other tier list video. I'm generally talking about averages, not extremes. If you have a guy whose forehead is as big as the rest of his face, then obviously it would be a big deficiency, but for someone who has a slightly bigger one, it's not a make or break. I've heard my female friends talking about a man's eyes, his jawline, his height, but very rarely about his forehead. Having in mind that we're not talking about an alien-looking guy, I'm going to put it in C. Let's go down a bit and talk about the nose. If it was a list about the female face, I'd probably put it in A or maybe even in S tier. But when it comes to men, it's not that important. You can get away with a slightly crooked or slightly bigger nose. It also depends on the rest of your face. If you have a quote-unquote cute look, meaning nice smooth skin, big eyelashes, maybe a slightly rounded jawline, and then all of a sudden have a super manly nose, then it's going to look off. But, if you have a strong jawline and overall masculine appearance, then it won't look that bad, and in some cases, it might even be preferable to a more feminine nose. I'm talking about the ones with no bridge whatsoever, which are slightly upwards on the tip. Anyway, with all that being said, it's not a make or break unless we're talking about some extreme case, so I'll put it in B. Since we covered the facial thirds individually, let's talk about them as a whole. Symmetry is quite important, but there's still some room for quote-unquote error. Obviously, having equal facial thirds is preferable, but if you have a slightly longer mid-face, or a slightly smaller forehead etc., it's not the end of the world. You can also manipulate this ratio a bit with the proper hairstyle and beard style. I happen to have a shorter chin, so I grow my beard a bit more in that area and it's unnoticeable. So, having in mind that symmetry is important, but you can also get away with some things, I'll put it in B. There are all kinds of ratios and symmetries, such as Philtrum to chin ratio, the ratio of the midface, the side-to-side symmetry, the interocular distance, and the list goes on and on. I'll keep them for a future video, maybe a part 2 if this one performs well. Anyway, let's talk about skin. Again, I'll talk about it as a whole, which includes smoothness, redness, wrinkles etc. I touched on this on my other tier list video too, where I explained that as long as you're not an extreme case, meaning having extremely dry skin, or acne or look like a grandpa, then you're good. Having this Hollywood glowing skin is definitely a bonus, but not a make or break, so I'll put this one in B. It's important because it covers literally all of your face, but on the other hand I've never heard a woman praising a man's baby soft skin. It also depends on the type. A glowing skin would be an A tier when it comes to boys, since their appeal has a lot to do with their youthful look, but when it comes to grown-ups, it's just a nice to have. There are chads out there with noticeable wrinkles, and they're not affected by them at all. It even makes them look wiser and more human in some cases. Something more important are the cheekbones. It's not only their direct effect on the face, but also their secondary functions. What I mean is that obviously, prominent cheekbones do look good, But they're also responsible for the appearance of the area under the eyes, and also help in creating that hollow cheek look. Very important feature, up there with the jawline, so I'll put it in A. And now let's talk about one of Manosphere's obsessions, the skull shape. I covered the eyebrow ridge, the cheekbones and the jawline, so I'll talk about the rest of the skull. People talk about having a warrior skull shape being vital, and it's simply not the case. Once again, types play an important role. If you're going for the hypermasculine look, then skull shape is definitely important, especially if you're sporting the shaved head look. But when it comes to the rest of the types, it's not that important. Pretty boys don't have that noticeable forehead protrusion, but they still look great. As long as you don't have a pretty whack head shape, then it doesn't matter that much, so I'll put it in C. Back to the important features, let's talk about the hair. It's something that it's noticeable from miles away. Okay, maybe not miles, but definitely meters. A girl might not notice or remember your slight asymmetries, but she's definitely going to remember if you have hair or not. When you describe someone like The Rock or Jason Statham to someone that doesn't know them, what is the first thing you're going to say? The answer is bald. These gentlemen happen to have nice skull shapes, high cheekbones, strong jawlines, etc., so they can get away with this, but for the vast majority of people, you can't. The red pill gurus often say, just shave it bro, while most people can save instead of shave, with just a hair transplant or something like minoxidil. Hair definitely belongs in A tier. And the reason I'm not putting it in S, is that some people can still look good without hair. Let's continue with teeth. Super important, women always talk about smiles. On the other hand, the eyes are still unmatched, so I'll put teeth in A. Let's close that mouth and talk about lips. The same thing as with the nose. If we were talking about female faces, it would be much higher, but when it comes to men it's not that important. And I'm not biased against them, I happen to have decent lips, but they're not as important. I've seen men with thin lips who are still chads. We don't have anything in D, so let's fill it up a bit. Another relatively unimportant feature are the ears. And time to repeat this for the 100th time, I'm talking about averages. If your lips look like Kamsat Chimaefs, or your ears like Dumbo the elephant, then of course your looks will take a major hit. But these are rare exceptions. So, I'll also put ears in D. Time to talk about the beard. This is a tricky one. There's a minority of women who absolutely hate it, there's also a minority of women who absolutely love it, but I believe that most women are okay with a beard, with the condition that it fits someone's face and it's well trimmed. Now, don't go overboard and do these super detailed beard cuts, because it defeats its purpose. The purpose is to look more masculine. Anyway, some people don't need a beard to look attractive, but given that the average guy doesn't have a chiseled jawline and will be massively benefited from growing a beard, I'll put it in A. Again, it's not a must-have if you have a defined jaw, but on the other hand it can transform a man's appearance. For many men, including myself, a beard is synonymous with their jawline, so if the jawline is in A, then the beard should also go in A. You can definitely make the case for it being lower, but the beard has many functions. Aside from the jaw, it can change your face shape. You can cover a big philtrum, you can elongate a recessed chin, you can cover your chubby cheeks, it's literally like makeup for men. I know the trend in the black pill is the e-boy look, but not everyone can or should pull that off, so I'll insist on this one. Before we move away from the face, I'll briefly refer to the leanness of it. I mean, I kinda covered it indirectly. Having a good jawline and prominent cheekbones usually comes with having a relatively low body fat percentage. There are always exceptions. For example, a fellow soldier of mine was pretty overweight, yet he still had hollow cheeks, but once again, rare exception. Losing face fat won't work for absolutely everyone, but on the other hand everyone has to do it to see what's under the fat. I couldn't find an emoji, and it's also a bit of a wild card as it massively depends on your underlying bone structure, but if I had to, I'd put it in A. Now, time for another crazy obsession of the manosphere, the neck. I could put it in the muscles category, as I did on my previous list about looks maxing, but so many guys get aroused thinking of big necks, so here we go. It's completely overrated. Sure, if you have a pencil neck it'll somewhat help you, but for the average guy, it's not that important. I've had countless conversations with female friends, female cousins, etc., and never have I heard about a guy's neck. It definitely provides a more masculine look, and it's free, so yeah, go for it, but if you think that you'll turn into a Chad due to your neck being 1 inch thicker, you're sadly mistaken. I'd put it in D, but pencil necks are a bit more common than messed up lips or ears, so I'll give it a C. Let's see the bigger picture and talk about the rest of the body. We could break it down in many parts, but it'll take us too long, so I'll talk about it as a whole, and I include many factors here such as skeleton or frame, muscle mass, definition, etc. It's definitely important, and I think it's one of the few things that can elevate a man a lot. A great body can take someone from the average range and put him into Chad-light or even Chad territory, given that he has decent genetics. Remember my Chad best friend that dates a new Stacy every month with some extras in between? Well, if I showed you his face, you wouldn't see the appeal. I mean, he's above average, nice jawline, nice smile, good cheekbones, but that's pretty much all. No hunter eyes, he has a big nose and average eyebrows at best. If I showed you a full body picture though, it would start clicking. He looks like a Greek god, nice muscle mass, but not over the top steroid look, and great definition, at least during the summer. The female thirst this guy is receiving is insane. He went from a skinny tall kid to Chad only by gym axing. But as I said, you have to have the proper genetics. He already had a good frame, and he's also 6'2". Not everyone that trains will become like him, but everyone can improve. For example, I have a good frame but I happen to struggle with body fat. The road won't be the same for everyone, but when you finally reach that nice spot of having a relatively low body fat percentage coupled with some muscle mass, you'll see the difference in women's behavior towards you. I just lost some weight and I received some compliments for my transformation, and I'm not even halfway through, so the end point will be very rewarding. I ranted a bit too much on this one, but I had to in order to describe the context. We're talking about the body as a whole after all, so I'll put this in A. Have in mind that I'm talking about the average guy here. Someone that has terrible face genetics or someone who's extremely short, won't be saved by gym axing. He'll still improve somewhat, but the effects will be negligible. But, if you're anywhere from 4 to a 7, you'll see a massive difference in your dating life by building a great physique. There's this notion in the black pill that women don't care much about the body. Sure, the face is more important, but I've seen countless women thirsting over a guy's abs or arms or back. On the other hand, the red pill gurus try to make it seem the other way around, that women don't care much about a man's facial aesthetics, and all they care about is the V shape and a thick neck. Once again, the truth is somewhere in the middle for the vast majority of people. If you have a near perfect face, your body won't matter that much as long as you're not an extreme case, and if you're on the opposite side of the spectrum, your abs and muscular arms won't save you, but for the vast majority of people it's a huge factor. You'll stand out from the crowd, you'll go from just another guy, to that guy with the great body. Don't neglect it. Let's close this video with height. It's definitely a big one, and this can also elevate a guy a lot. A guy with an average height and an average face, is once again, just another guy. But, a normie who's 6'3", suddenly becomes the tall one. I've done a whole video on face versus height, go watch it after this one, but my stance is that it's very important, just not vital if you're not an extreme case. Some guys actually believe that if you're 5'11" it's over. It's gotten this amount of ridiculous. Anyway, I'll put height in A. Comment below what I didn't cover and maybe I'll include these missing points in part 2. Thanks for watching until the end and take care.